You have been lied to your entire life by screenwriters who have never actually read a law book. Our brains are overflowing with fake legal loopholes, dramatic courtroom tricks, and imaginary rights that simply do not exist outside of a movie set. It is time to separate legal fact from Hollywood fiction. We are tearing down the most stubbornly persistent legal myths that society blindly accepts as the absolute truth. Get ready to realize how little you actually know about the law. 1. If you ask a cop if they are a cop, they legally have to tell you the truth. Let us explore the absolute absurdity of the most dangerous urban legend ever birthed by bad screenwriting. It is genuinely hilarious how many amateur criminals actually believe this cinematic masterpiece of a lie, treating it like some unbreakable constitutional cheat code. Movies constantly portray this scenario as a magical loophole, as if a highly trained narcotics detective is going to immediately blow a massive 2-year undercover sting operation just because a paranoid drug dealer asked him a direct question in a dimly lit alleyway. In reality, law enforcement officers are legally permitted and actively encouraged to lie to your face about their identity to maintain their cover. If this ridiculous movie rule were actually written into law, the entire concept of undercover police work literally would not exist anywhere on the planet. Criminal cartels would just have to include a basic questionnaire at the door, and the entire justice system would instantly collapse. 2. You must wait exactly 24 hours before reporting a missing person to the authorities. This might legitimately be the most actively harmful myth that Hollywood ever invented purely to manufacture cheap narrative suspense. In countless television dramas and gritty thrillers, the frantic mother or terrified husband is always turned away by a callous, gum-chewing desk sergeant who taps his watch and tells them to come back tomorrow. In the actual real world, the first 24 hours are universally recognized by law enforcement as the most critical, life-or-death window in any disappearance. Police departments want to know immediately if someone vanishes under suspicious circumstances, especially if young children, the elderly, or vulnerable adults are involved. Forcing people to wait a full day just gives a kidnapper a massive, insurmountable head start while physical evidence vanishes and trails go completely cold. There is absolutely no mandatory waiting period written into any police handbook anywhere. It is completely baffling that screenwriters are still allowed to recycle this dangerous fictional protocol just to artificially stretch a 45-minute television plotline. 3. You are legally entitled to exactly one dramatic phone call upon your arrest. We have all seen the incredibly tense scene where the captured hero uses their single, precious opportunity to call a brilliant hacker friend, a shadowy government boss, or a disgruntled ex-wife. But if you actually sit down and read the Constitution, you will notice that it does not contain a strict single call clause anywhere in its text. In reality, the number of calls you get is largely up to the discretion of the booking officer, the specific precinct policy, and how cooperative you are currently being. If you genuinely need to arrange bail money, contact a defense lawyer, and let your panicked family know that you are currently detained, a reasonable booking officer will usually let you make several calls to get your affairs in order. The police actually want you to arrange bail so you stop taking up valuable space in their holding cell. The idea that a single wrong number or an unanswered voicemail instantly leaves you completely isolated from the outside world is pure dramatic fiction designed to artificially raise the stakes. 4. If the police forget to read you your Miranda rights the precise second they slap the handcuffs on your wrists, your entire case gets thrown out and you casually walk free. This is undoubtedly every lazy screenwriter's absolute favorite get-out-of-jail-free card. The actual truth is infinitely more boring and bureaucratic. Law enforcement officers only need to read you those famous rights if 2 specific conditions are met simultaneously. First, you must be officially in custody, and second, they must be actively interrogating you about the crime. If they arrest you, put you in the back of the cruiser, and simply let you sit there in complete silence while they drive to the station, they do not have to say a single word to you. Even worse for the cinematic criminals, any spontaneous confessions you blurt out in the back seat out of sheer panic before the rights are ever read are still completely admissible in a court of law. Hollywood has basically convinced millions of otherwise intelligent people that the complex justice system operates on the exact same logic as a technical foul in a basketball game. 5. A defense attorney can call a completely unknown surprise witness to dramatically burst through the courtroom doors at the last possible second of a trial. In movie land, this gasp-inducing theatrical moment instantly wins the case while the dramatic musical score swells to a crescendo. In actual modern courtrooms, this is referred to as a severe discovery violation. The legal system absolutely hates surprises of any kind. Months before the trial ever officially begins, both the prosecution and the defense are legally obligated to exchange a massive, highly detailed list of every single witness they plan to call and every piece of evidence they intend to present. This mandatory process is called discovery, and it guarantees a fair fight. If a renegade lawyer actually tried pulling this cinematic stunt in a real trial, the judge would immediately block the shocking testimony, aggressively chew out the attorney in front of the jury, and quite possibly hit them with severe professional sanctions. 6. Congratulations! You just stumbled across a mysterious duffel bag stuffed with non-sequential $100 bills in the woods. According to every crime thriller ever filmed, the ancient legal doctrine of finders keepers officially applies, and you are now a secret millionaire. Sadly, the actual penal code considers you a common thief. The law strictly differentiates between abandoned property and mislaid property. A rusty lawnmower by the curb is abandoned. A bag of $1 million is legally presumed mislaid because nobody intentionally throws away a massive fortune. By law, you are required to turn that cash over to the local authorities. If nobody claims it after a specific statutory period, usually several months, the state might legally let you keep it. But if you just drag it home and immediately start buying expensive sports cars, you are committing a massive felony called theft by finding. 7. There is a terrifyingly common fantasy where an angry homeowner stands on their porch with a shotgun, legally convinced they can blast anyone who steps onto their meticulously manicured lawn. Movies constantly portray simple trespassing as an automatic death penalty offense. Acting on this cinematic impulse is a fantastic way to legally guarantee yourself a permanent life sentence in a federal penitentiary. The legal concept of the castle doctrine or stand your ground laws generally only applies if you have a reasonable, terrifying fear of imminent death or severe bodily harm. Simply walking across someone's grass, or even standing on their driveway to safely turn a vehicle around, absolutely does not give you the legal right to execute them. Property laws aggressively value human life over your precious petunias. You cannot use lethal force to protect an empty car, a detached shed, or a mailbox. If you start blasting away at a confused delivery driver simply because they walked past a no trespassing sign, the prosecutor will happily show the jury how completely unhinged your understanding of self-defense actually is. 8. Judges are constantly and violently banging a wooden gavel to scream for order in the court whenever people start arguing. Pop culture has effectively convinced us that every single judge in America is essentially a highly educated, deeply frustrated percussionist working out their anger issues. In truth, the gavel is almost entirely a ceremonial desk ornament and is exceedingly rarely used in standard American courtrooms. Most modern legal proceedings are shockingly quiet, highly procedural, and frankly, a bit tedious to watch. If the viewing gallery actually erupts into shouting, the judge does not desperately hammer a block of wood on their desk to loudly compete with the chaotic noise like an angry livestock auctioneer. They simply use a microphone to calmly instruct the armed bailiff to forcefully clear the room of anyone causing a disturbance. Real, terrifying judicial authority does not actually require a cheap wooden prop purchased from a legal supply catalog to command absolute respect in a room full of highly paid lawyers. 9. Planning to passionately kiss a handsome foreigner at the altar to magically grant them instant American citizenship is a cornerstone of romantic comedies. The script insists that the absolute second the priest declares, "You husband and wife," a glowing bald eagle delivers a pristine American passport. Federal immigration law views this charming cinematic trope as a highly illegal, heavily penalized federal fraud scheme. Marrying a citizen does not automatically grant you immediate citizenship or even a permanent green card. It merely allows you to apply for an adjustment of status, kicking off an agonizing, multi-year bureaucratic nightmare. You have to submit mountains of photographic evidence, share joint bank accounts, and sit through terrifyingly invasive interviews with federal agents whose entire job is to detect fake romances. If they suspect you did it purely for the visa, you will both face massive fines, and your cinematic soulmate is getting immediately deported. 10. A husband and a wife absolutely cannot be arrested and charged for committing the exact same crime. This absurd legal misinterpretation is usually played for laughs, most famously in iconic television comedies. But a shocking number of people actually search for this loophole online, hoping for a legally sanctioned domestic crime spree. The reality heavily revolves around the widely misunderstood legal concept of spousal privilege. Spousal privilege simply means that the government generally cannot force you to take the witness stand and formally testify against your legally wedded partner. It absolutely, positively does not provide some kind of magical, impenetrable immunity deal if the two of you decide to put on ski masks and rob a federal bank together as a fun, romantic weekend activity. The police will absolutely be thrilled to put both of you in metal handcuffs and let you share the incredibly awkward, utterly silent ride to the station in the back of the exact same squad car. 11. Police are legally obligated to patiently wait at your front door and let you read the entire search warrant before they can enter your home. Movie protagonists love blocking the doorway, smugly demanding to inspect the paperwork line by line, while their accomplices frantically flush evidence down the toilet in the background. Real constitutional law is far less accommodating to your reading speed. If officers have a signed warrant from a judge, they only need to announce their presence. If you refuse to immediately open the door, or if they suspect evidence is being actively destroyed, they are legally authorized to introduce your deadbolt to a heavy metal battering ram. They will simply leave a crumpled copy of the warrant on your shattered coffee table on their way out. The law dictates they must serve you the document. It absolutely does not guarantee you quiet reading time. 12. A victim can magically halt a criminal trial by boldly declaring that they want to drop the charges. We constantly see cinematic heroes generously deciding not to press charges against a sympathetic thief, wrapping the entire legal process up in a neat little bow. In reality, criminal law does not care about your forgiveness. Crimes are committed against the state, not just the individual. Once the police make an arrest and hand the case to the district attorney, the victim is reduced to nothing more than a witness. The prosecutor is the only person on earth with the legal authority to drop the charges. Even if you beg the judge to let the guy go, the state can and will force you to testify under subpoena. 13. If a person goes missing for exactly 7 years, the law automatically declares them dead without any further questions. Hollywood loves this neat little legal timer, usually using it to allow a grieving spouse to finally cash a massive life insurance check just in time for the climax. The actual law is a bureaucratic nightmare of endless paperwork. There is no magical alarm clock that rings on the 7th anniversary. To get someone declared legally dead in absentia, families must file complex petitions in probate court, proving they have exhausted every conceivable search effort. In some jurisdictions, this agonizing legal battle can take decades. The court system does not just casually hand out death certificates and clear massive inheritances purely based on flipping the calendar. 14. You can legally leave your entire multi-million-dollar estate directly to your beloved pet. Eccentric billionaires in comedies are always leaving their mansions to a spoiled poodle, infuriating their greedy relatives who then plot to steal the money from a dog. Legally speaking, this is entirely impossible because the law rigorously classifies animals as personal property. A dog cannot open a bank account, sign a real estate deed, or pay property taxes. If you just write that you leave everything to your cat in your will, the probate court will invalidate that clause entirely, and your terrible cousins will inherit everything anyway. The only legal way to care for a pet after death is to establish a specialized pet trust, leaving the money to a human trustee who is legally bound to spend it on the animal. 15. Getting violently dragged into a windowless Las Vegas basement by massive security guards simply because you are incredibly good at math is a terrifying cinematic illusion. Pop culture has entirely convinced the general public that counting cards at a blackjack table is a severe criminal offense that will result in broken kneecaps or federal prison time. In reality, Card counting is absolutely not illegal under any state or federal law. You are literally just using your brain to silently track mathematical probability based on information that is completely visible to everyone in the room. You have not altered the deck, modified the equipment, or bribed the dealer. However, casinos are entirely private businesses, and they reserve the right to legally refuse service to absolutely anyone. If they notice you are a mathematical genius draining their vault, they will not have you arrested. They will simply tap you on the shoulder, legally trespass you from the property, and ban you from ever returning. 16. The federal government has the absolute legal authority to instantly take over any local police investigation simply by flashing a badge and acting arrogant. Cinematic federal agents love strutting into small-town precincts, loudly declaring that a case is now their jurisdiction while the local sheriff stews in anger. In the actual framework of American law, jurisdiction is rigidly defined by specific federal statutes, not sheer ego. Federal agencies can only legally intervene if a federal law has been explicitly broken, such as a kidnapping victim forcibly crossing state lines, or a bank robbery involving federally insured money. Even then, they typically are required to work collaboratively in joint task forces. A guy in an expensive suit cannot just legally steal a local homicide case because he feels like being dramatic. 17. A verbal agreement or a simple handshake holds absolutely zero legal weight in a court of law. Villains on screen are always gloating about how a promise does not matter because it was not explicitly signed in blood or stamped by a notary public. Contract law is actually quite terrifyingly broad in the real world. While proving it can definitely be a massive headache for your legal team, a verbal agreement is a fully legally binding contract in most situations, provided there was a clear exchange of value. If you verbally promise to pay someone to paint your house and they do the work, a judge will legally force you to pay them every single cent. The idea that a legal contract only exists on a piece of thick parchment is a dangerous myth that has bankrupted many naive business owners. 18. Pleading insanity is a brilliant, foolproof legal loophole to completely avoid prison and spend a few months relaxing in a quiet hospital. Television lawyers constantly use this as a secret weapon to save their obviously guilty clients at the last possible second. The reality of the legal insanity defense is incredibly grim and highly misunderstood. It is extremely rarely used, and it is successful in a fraction of 1% of all criminal cases nationwide. More importantly, if you actually win an insanity plea, you do not walk free. You are legally committed to a highly secure psychiatric facility, often for a much longer, indefinite period of time than a standard prison sentence would have ever been. Have you ever wondered why real defense attorneys actively try to avoid the exact same strategy that movies portray as a guaranteed win? 19. Declaring bankruptcy magically and instantly legally erases every single debt you owe, leaving you with a completely clean financial slate overnight. Sitcom characters literally stand in the middle of a crowded office and yell the word bankruptcy as if it is a magic spell that legally forces the bank to forget about their mortgage. Federal bankruptcy law is actually a grueling, deeply intrusive legal process that severely damages your credit for up to a decade. Furthermore, the law explicitly exempts several massive categories of debt from ever being discharged, including most student loans, court-ordered child support, and recent federal tax debts. You can beg the federal judge all you want, but the government is absolutely going to systematically collect what it is owed. There is no legal reset button in real-life finance. 20. Undercover police officers are legally forbidden from committing any crimes whatsoever, and if they do, the entire case is immediately dismissed as illegal entrapment. Screenwriters love creating artificial tension by forcing undercover agents into situations where they might have to break a minor law, terrified their entire operation will be exposed in court. The actual legal doctrine governing undercover operations is significantly more flexible. While they cannot murder people or initiate entirely new criminal conspiracies, undercover officers are often legally authorized by prosecutors to participate in minor illegal activities, like purchasing stolen goods. This is specifically allowed to maintain their cover and gather crucial evidence. The courts recognize that infiltrating a violent syndicate legally requires getting your hands a little dirty. 21. If a police officer flashes a tin badge and yells that they desperately need your vehicle for official business, you are legally obligated to toss them the keys and take the bus. We have all seen the rogue detective dramatically hijack a minivan to chase the bad guys through a farmer's market. In the real world, the legal doctrine of commandeering civilian property is a complete and utter cinematic fantasy. While a few states have obscure, archaic laws on the books about generally assisting an officer, no modern police department policy allows a cop to legally jack your Honda Civic just because they are in a hurry. If they actually try this, they are essentially just committing grand theft auto with a badge. Besides, real police officers are driving highly modified pursuit interceptors equipped with heavy-duty suspension and advanced communication radios. Do you honestly believe a highly trained pursuit driver is going to trade their tactical vehicle for your messy hatchback with a half-eaten burrito in the cup holder? The city's insurance liability lawyers would literally have a collective heart attack. 22. A deceased eccentric billionaire can legally leave behind a heavily edited VHS tape to dictate his final wishes from beyond the grave. Hollywood absolutely loves this dramatic trope where the bitter family sits around a glowing television while the dead guy points and laughs at them on screen, legally disinheriting them one by one. It is a fantastic scene for a comedy, but it holds absolutely zero weight in an actual probate court. A video recording is not a legally valid substitute for a formally written, signed, and properly witnessed last will and testament. Even if the billionaire looks directly into the camera lens and clearly states his intentions, a judge will toss the tape directly into the garbage. The law strictly requires wet ink signatures and physically present witnesses specifically to prevent someone from holding a weapon behind the camera to force the recording. If you want to legally leave your massive fortune to a pet parrot, you still have to do the incredibly boring paperwork like the rest of us. The legal system operates on mountains of ancient paper, not cinematic flair. 23. Every single high school student in America has confidently recited the absolute dumbest fake rule in educational history. If the teacher is 15 minutes late, we are legally allowed to leave the classroom. Teen movies treat this legendary urban myth like it is firmly written into the Constitution itself. There is absolutely no municipal, state, or federal law that grants impatient teenagers the legal authority to abandon their scheduled education based on a stopwatch. Schools operate under the strict legal doctrine of in loco parentis, meaning they are legally responsible for your physical safety while you're on campus. If you smugly walk out of the building at the 16-minute mark, you are not exercising a brilliant legal loophole, you are just legally truant. The only thing you will successfully earn is a mandatory trip to the principal's office and a very angry phone call to your parents. 24. A defense attorney is legally allowed to dramatically pace around the entire courtroom and walk right up to the witness stand to scream directly into a suspect's face. Every cinematic courtroom scene features a ridiculously handsome lawyer leaning over the wooden rail, pounding their fists and practically spitting on the witness until they legally confess out of sheer terror. The truth is that real courtroom geography is strictly regulated by law. That empty space between the lawyer's table and the judge's bench is called the well, and lawyers are legally forbidden from casually strolling through it. If an attorney wants to approach a witness just to hand them a standard document, they must formally ask the judge for permission first. If a lawyer tried to aggressively charge the witness box to perform a dramatic monologue in real life, the armed bailiff would immediately tackle them to the ground. Real trials essentially feature two bored people standing rigidly behind heavy wooden podiums for hours on end. 25. When a fabulously wealthy eccentric dies, the entire extended family must legally gather in a dimly lit, mahogany-paneled library for the formal reading of the will by a very serious lawyer. It is an undeniably brilliant setup for a classic murder mystery, but it is absolute nonsense in modern estate law. There is absolutely no legal requirement anywhere for a dramatic, mandatory group reading where greedy siblings glare at each other over ancient grudges. In fact, most wills are incredibly boring documents that are simply filed away in a local probate court, where they quietly become public record. The appointed executor then just mails out mundane paper copies to the various beneficiaries. Nobody is sitting around a roaring fireplace drinking scotch, while waiting for an ancient attorney to dramatically reveal who gets the haunted Victorian mansion on the hill. It completely removes the delicious tension of seeing who gets entirely cut out of the inheritance to their face. But that is just the highly disappointing reality of modern administrative paperwork. 26. Have you ever noticed how a cinematic interrogation always peaks with a highly dramatic lie detector test? The suspect sweats, the machine scribbles wildly, and the detective confidently slaps the paper, declaring he has the legal proof to lock them up forever. Here is the legally embarrassing truth. Those dramatic polygraph printouts are practically useless in a real courtroom. The Supreme Court and almost all state jurisdictions consider lie detectors to be fundamentally unreliable pseudoscience. They simply measure stress responses like heart rate and perspiration, not actual deception. A terrified innocent person will easily fail, while a calm sociopathic criminal can pass with flying colors. Consequently, polygraph results are almost never legally admissible as evidence during a trial. Prosecutors cannot use them to prove guilt, and defense attorneys cannot use them to prove innocence. They are essentially just an elaborate psychological prop cops use to trick nervous suspects into confessing. 27. The captain of a cruise ship possesses the supreme legal authority to instantly marry any two people on board at a moment's notice. Pop culture has universally convinced us that the captain of a vessel at sea is essentially an aquatic wizard of love, legally rewriting tax statuses and joint property rights during a ridiculous romantic comedy climax. The highly disappointing reality is that the vast majority of ship captains hold absolutely zero legal authority to perform a marriage ceremony simply because they are steering a large boat. Unless the captain also happens to be an officially ordained minister or a legally recognized judge back on dry land, any marriage they perform is completely void in the eyes of the law. The only reason this silly myth exists is because people deeply confuse a captain's authority to maintain maritime safety with the government power to issue binding state licenses. Next time you're on a cruise, please do not ask the exhausted guy steering the boat to legally officiate your destination wedding. 28. What if you hear a strange noise in your yard, step out onto your porch, and fire a single dramatic blast from your shotgun straight up into the dark sky just to scare the intruders away? In a movie, the cops would pat you on the back and call you a brave citizen protecting your family. In the unforgiving reality of local criminal courts, you're going straight into the back of a squad car. There is absolutely no legal provision anywhere that permits the firing of warning shots. From a strict legal standpoint, discharging a firearm into the air in a populated area is a serious crime, often classified as reckless endangerment or illegal discharge of a weapon. Gravity is a relentless force, and what goes up must rapidly come down. You are legally responsible for wherever that projectile ultimately lands, even if it is miles away. The legal system demands that deadly force is only used when facing an immediate, lethal threat. If you have the time and safety to shoot at the clouds, the law brilliantly argues that you were not actually in immediate danger. 29. You can completely bypass standard legal procedures by paying a massive bail amount with a sketchy metal briefcase full of physical cash. The stylish mobster walks into the dingy police precinct, violently slams a heavy briefcase onto the desk, pops the locks to reveal stacks of non-sequential $100 bills, and instantly buys his criminal buddy out of jail. It looks incredibly cool, but trying this in a real legal setting is a fantastic way to instantly trigger a massive federal investigation. Courts and police stations are strictly monitored government entities, not sketchy back alley pawn shops. If you try to pay a $50,000 bail in straight physical cash, you are legally required to fill out a mountain of tax forms to prove exactly where that money came from. The government has incredibly strict anti-money laundering laws, and dropping a duffel bag of cash is literally the biggest legal red flag imaginable. The legal system loves money, but it loves tracking your taxes even more. All right, we have aggressively dismantled 29 ridiculous legal myths, and there is only one final cinematic lie left. But before we reveal number 30, it is time for the final verdict. In our entirely biased opinion, the award for the most absurd fake law goes to the idea that undercover cops must tell the truth if asked. Just imagine a ruthless global cartel defeating a massive federal sting operation, simply by making everyone fill out a basic honesty questionnaire at the door. Pure comedic gold. Do you agree with our ruling? Let us know below. And now, our final myth. 30. Angrily threatening to legally sue your neighbor for $10 million in a massive defamation lawsuit simply because they posted on social media that you are an incredibly annoying idiot is a complete waste of breath. People drastically misunderstand what actually constitutes legal slander or libel. You cannot drag someone into civil court just because they hurt your feelings or published a highly negative opinion about your horrible personality. To legally win a defamation case, you must conclusively prove that the person made a demonstrably false statement of verifiable fact, and that specific lie caused you direct, measurable financial damage. If someone claims you literally stole money from a charity, that is potentially defamatory because it can be proven false. But if they just loudly declare that your cooking tastes like wet cardboard, the First Amendment aggressively protects their legal right to be a huge jerk. Hollywood will always prioritize an entertaining script over a boring legal textbook, and honestly, we cannot really blame them. But trying to use movie logic in a real courtroom is a fantastic way to ruin your life. Do you think our society is actually becoming more legally illiterate because we watch too many exaggerated crime shows? Sound off in the comments with your hottest take. Do not forget to subscribe for more reality-shattering content. Hit the like button, and please, stop taking legal advice from action movies.